this is where we left off. Last time we created all the value cards and also modularized the value cards. We created the session duration function, and then also the bounce rate function, and then we also put the value cards in order. What we forgot last time was we didn't add the session duration to the main page here or to the sidebar. So we're going to do this time, and what we're also going to do is we're going to use the Search Console data frame to create a map, a visitor map, so we can see where the visitors are coming from which countries, and how many there are. And what's a little bit tricky about this is that now we're dealing with two data frames. One data frame is from the Google Analytics API, and that's basically everything that we're seeing here, and also in the sidebar. And also the session duration and the bounce rate is coming from the Google Analytics API data. And then for the Search Console data, the visitor map is coming from. So whenever we're here in the sidebar and then we're clicking, for example, general groupings, then the visualization appears here on the main page, and then the function has to know which data frame to use, Search Console or Google Analytics. And same thing if we load the application and the visualizations appear on the main page, the app has to know from where the data is coming from and which data frame to use. And we're going to do that today as well. So what I did already, I have the Search Console CSV in here, and I've read it in here as well already, and difference is it's _C for Search Console. The web data is just a normal Google Analytics data frame. And then what I also did, we're getting the data from this link here, downloading the data, putting it in a data frame, and with this data we can put boundaries around the countries later on for our leaflet map. But first of all, we're going to go into the Google Analytics visualization file, and then here in the switch statement, what we can do is we can say bounce rate is equal to, and then what we can do in here, we can check the bounce rate function. It's called bounce rate, so we're going to copy paste it. We'll say bounce rate df, and then we're grabbing the data, the plot in here, and then we're doing the same thing with session duration as well, and this is equal to session _ duration df, and then we're also grabbing the plot in here, session duration plot. And then we still have to create this, but I'll just put it in here for now. We'll say, or let's just run it and see if it works. Because what we have to do as well is in here for the main visualization one, we have AB. So the ID for page views is A, the ID for device category is B. And then we also have the sidebar. C is general groupings. So what I can do is, or what we can do is we can say D is equal to the bounce rate, and then E we can put in the sidebar, which is equal to session duration. It's going to be E. So we can save this and go into the app, and let's run it. So now we're getting the value cards. The bounce rate is in here, and the session duration should be in here. So if we click the bounce rate, it should appear here in the sidebar, and then session duration should pop up back in. Okay, so it seems like everything is working as expected. So now what we're going to do, we have to distinguish between the different visualizations and where the data is coming from. So in order to do this, I'm just going to create a named vector. I'll just call this what df. And in here we're going to list all the different IDs that we have so far. So we have A, B, C, D, E so far, and then F is going to be the visitor map. And then we're going to make this a named vector. So we'll say per, and we set the names. So I remember, so A was page views, B was device category, but I just remember we actually don't need that. But what we need is where the data frames are coming from. So yeah, we need a vector, and then actually for A, we're gonna say GA for Google Analytics data frame. So B is GA as well. They're all coming from the Google Analytics API data. A, B, C, D, E, and then F is coming from the Search Console data. Now we'll save this, and what we can do next, we can go into the data, or where we're pulling the data from, and we're filtering. So web data, and then the other one was called web data C. Let's say web data underscore C. And then now in here, what we can do, we can just copy paste this one. Also web data filtered underscore C is web data C. And then instead of returning just one data frame, what we'll do is we are returning the GA data, which is web data filtered. And then we're also returning the Google Search Console data, which is web data filtered C. And then in here, what we're going to return is a list. And again, GA is equal to, we'll do shiny reactive data. And SC is equal to shiny reactive data. And this is then going to be, so the data with the brackets, the round brackets, is coming from the reactive here. And then we're referencing the GA one, the GA data with $GA, and then the SC Search Console data with $SC. Then we'll save this. And then this data, so first of all, the get data server is this one, and we have 2 or 3 arguments. So the third one is web data C. So inside the app, I'll have to do web data C is equal to web data C, and then df filtered dates is going to be a list. So I'll just call this GA, and I have to change that in the main visualization module then later on as well. And then SC is going to be data filtered $SC. And this is $GA. Because here we called it GA, oh no, here we called it GA and SC. And then I'm going to delete this one and save this. And then I'll also save this. And now we have to go into the main visualization server in here. And so now we have here GA and SC. C. And now remember what I said in the earlier videos, we used pmap and not map2 because now our third vector we're mapping over is going to be the vector of the data frames. So page views is the Google Analytics one, device category is the Google Analytics one, bounce rate is the Google Analytics one, and then the visitor map is SC. The ID is going to be F, and then the name is going to be visitor map. And the name has to be equal to the Google Analytics switch statement 1. And I haven't put it in here yet, so I'll say visitor map, and then the function visitor map df. So we haven't created the function yet, but we'll do this in a bit. So now we have visitor map here, and then we have the different data frames. So what we have to do now, we have one more argument set, and then instead of here using web data, we can say if set is equal to GA, then it's going to be the GA data, else it's going to be the Search Console data. Then we'll save this, and so whenever we're starting up the application in the render UI for the first 3 IDs and visualizations, page views, device category, and bounce rate, we're using the GA data frame, and then for the visitor map we have to use the Search Console data frame, and that's what we're doing in here. So now there is this other problem with the sidebar. So if, for example, we are deleting the visitor map on the main page, it's going to pop up in the sidebar, and if we want to click on the action link, the app has to know which data frame to use. So here we're using the whatDF vector. I'm just doing a global assignment, which we shouldn't do, but for now I'll just use a global assignment for this one, and then going back into here. So this is our named vector, and then the unique ID is going to be clicked link, which we're getting from JavaScript. So what we're going to do is we're going to say whatDF, then we'll say in, and let's say clicked link is equal to E. So what we would get if we run this is E, and then the name is GA. So that basically means that we want to use the GA data frame. So then we just get the name of the vector, which is GA, and this is going to be the data frame. So if the ID is going to be F, then it's going to be the Search Console data frame that we're using. And this is exactly what happens. So in here, instead of the character, I'm just going to replace this with clicked link, which is going to be the unique ID. And then in here, I'll just say whatDF to use. And then we're doing the exact same thing as we're doing here. So we can copy paste this. Instead of web data, we'll say if now whatDF to use is GA, then we're using the GA data frame. Otherwise, we're using the Search Console data frame. So we can save this. And now I think what's left to do, the only thing that's left is we have to create the visitor map. Because here we already included the visitor map and the visitor map function. Then in the main visualization, we included an additional argument here where we see if it's the Google Analytics API or the Search Console API. And then we also do this for the clicked link. And later on, in later videos, we're going to include this as an argument. But for now, I did a global assignment. And then for the sidebar module, this just stays as it is. And then for the get data module, I'm going to get the web data filtered one and also the web data filtered C1, this Google Search Console one. Okay, so I'm going to create a new R file and I'm calling this function visitor_map function, and it only takes a data frame, and we're using the web data_c data for it. So this is how the data frame looks like. We have a date and then we have the country name here. So what we're going to do is we're going to group by the country name, and then we're just summarizing from where visitors are coming from. So we can say group by country name, and then we're going to summarize and say n equals, and we're just aggregating what's there. Now we're going to ungroup all of this, and then we're ending up with 158 countries. And we're just going to call this total countries. What we have to do next is I'm just going to include the GeoJSON library and also the Leaflet library. Library Leaflet. And then for later on, we need the fuzzy join library too, because in this one, in the data frame, the countries are not matching one-to-one. There are some countries that are spelled a little bit different. So we're using the fuzzy join to join more countries, basically, instead of just using an inner join. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to specify the color palette. So we're going to say pal. We're going to do leaflet, and then we'll say color bin. And then in here we have the palette. Just going to use blue color. Then we'll have the domain, and this is going to be total countries, and then $n. So we have total countries and then the number. Then what we also have is how many colors we want to use, 10. Then pretty is going to be equal to false. This is the palette we're going to use. So what we have to do now is we're going to have the geo data frame. Then we'll say fuzzy join, and then regex inner join. We'll have the total countries as the first argument, and then we'll say by equals. So for the geo one, if we look at it, we have geo. If we do $, it's going to be the admin column with all the countries. So we'll say admin, and we'll join this. If we look at total countries, we'll join this on country name. So if we run this, we get the data frame like this. And now we'll also need the SF library, because right now it's a data frame, but we want to convert it to an SF object so we can put the borders on the map and get the geometry right. So we'll say SF, and then we'll say ST to or SF, or it's ST as SF. So if we run this, this one is not a data frame anymore. It's going to be a simple features SF object, and we're just going to save this in Geo. And then now we have to create the map. So we'll say leaflet data is going to be the first argument, and then we also have the options. And so we're going to say leaflet options, and here we have the min zoom and the max zoom argument. So we have min zoom is equal to 1, and then max zoom is also equal to 1. And what we have next then is we just have to add tiles. So we say leaflet add tiles object dot not found. Okay, I'll do geo, and I pipe this into the leaflet function. What we get is now a map where we can see the entire world basically. And now we have to also add polygons to get the borders of each country. So we'll say leaflet add polygons, and then in here what we're going to do, we'll say stroke is equal to false. We'll have smooth factor is equal to 0.2. We have an opacity which is equal to 1. Then the color is equal to, then equal to, we'll say pal n, and then we'll also have a pop-up which is equal to, we'll say paste 0. And what we want to have is, so we have the geo data frame, and then here we want to have the country name. So we'll say paste 0 country name. Then we have the semicolon, and then in here what we want to have is the counts of the country name. So what we're going to say is s dot character n, and then we'll say views. So if we run this, we'll have United States has 1,294 views, Brazil has 189, Canada 115, but I think it should be colored by, it should be blue. So let me run this again. Now it gives me an error. Total countries. Now it's colored by blue. It wasn't opacity, it was a fill opacity, the argument. So if we're going to save this in the our folder as visitor_map, and then what I forgot is in here I have to return the map. So I'll call this map, and then I'll say return map. I'll save it, run it again. Okay, so what we get is page views, category, bounce rate, visitor map. So the render UI already worked. The render UI figured out, okay, for the first three, we need the Google Analytics data. For the fourth one, we need the visitor map. So let's see if the observer works too, where we insert the action link in the sidebar. So if we use channel groupings, then the GA data should be used to create channel groupings for session duration as well. And then let's see if for visitor map we got it right with the Search Console data. And it seems like it's working. So that was everything for today. Again, in the description below there's a link to my blog where I also wrote up a blog post about this video, and I'll see you next time.